Asterisk, the entire restaurant went silent. The sound of a hand striking flesh echoed across the elegant dining hall, sharper than the clinking glasses and murmured conversations that had filled the air just seconds before. A young woman, visibly pregnant, sat frozen in her seat, her cheek burning red, her eyes glistening with humiliation as her husband, the powerful CEO everyone in the city admired, glared down at her. No one dared to move. No one dared to breathe. But in that painful silence, a single pair of eyes, those of a humble waiter in a crisp uniform, locked onto her trembling figure. He knew her, not as a stranger, not as just another customer. She was his sister. And though she had married into wealth and power, she was now sitting there, broken, abandoned by the very man who had sworn to protect her. Asterisk, dear viewers, before we dive deeper into this powerful story of pain, betrayal, and unexpected redemption, I want to ask you, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of family, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories Collection. Your support allows these real and emotional stories to reach hearts all over the world. Asterisk, the woman's name was Elena. To those who saw her, she looked like a dream, graceful, well-dressed, her pregnancy only adding to her glow. But beneath the surface, Elena was drowning. She had once believed her husband, Daniel, was her savior, a man of charm and success, who swept her off her feet and gave her a life she thought she had always wanted. But behind closed doors, Daniel was different. He was demanding, controlling, and cruel. What began as subtle criticisms turned into cold silences and then into words sharp enough to cut her spirit. Eventually, words weren't enough for him. Tonight, at the very table where they were supposed to celebrate their unborn child, he had raised his hand against her. In full view of strangers. Asterisk, the waiter, whose name was Adrien, felt his blood boil. Years ago, his little sister had left their modest home behind to chase her dreams, and though life had kept them apart, his love for her had never dimmed. He had built his own fortune quietly, away from the public eye, investing smartly, creating businesses under the radar until he became one of the most influential yet hidden billionaires in the region. But he had chosen simplicity, living like an ordinary man, often serving as a volunteer or working among everyday people to stay grounded. Tonight, fate had placed him in the same restaurant, in a waiter's uniform, watching his sister endure the most humiliating moment of her life. Asterisk, Elena lowered her gaze, ashamed. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the marble floor beneath her feet. She could feel the stares of the other guests, their pity, their judgment. And in that moment, she hated herself for staying, for trying to believe Daniel would ever change. She had given him her trust, her heart, and now he was taking even her dignity. But before her tears could fall, Adrien stepped forward. Asterisk, he walked toward her table slowly, not as a waiter, but as a shield. Every eye followed him. Daniel, still seething, glanced up and sneered, "What do you think you're doing? Get back to work." But Adrien didn't flinch. He stood tall, his calm voice carrying a weight that silenced the whispers in the room. He placed a gentle hand on Elena's shoulder, his eyes softening as he whispered her name. Her head snapped up in shock, recognition flooding her. Her lips trembled as she breathed out, "Adrien?" Asterisk, the room seemed to freeze. No one could believe what they were witnessing. The arrogant CEO, who thought his money could buy silence and respect, was now facing a man whose quiet authority outshone his. Daniel scoffed, trying to reassert control, but Adrien's gaze burned through him. In that moment, it was clear. Elena was not alone. Asterisk, Adrien guided his sister away from the table, wrapping an arm protectively around her, ignoring Daniel's angry protests. To the crowd, the truth unfolded slowly, like a scene from a film. The waiter was no ordinary man. He was Elena's brother. And not just her brother, he was a man of influence far greater than the arrogant CEO who had just exposed his cruelty in public. Asterisk, as they left the restaurant, Elena's tears finally fell. But this time they weren't only from pain, they were from the comfort of knowing she had someone who would never let her fall again. Adrien reassured her that she deserved better, that she deserved love, respect, and safety for both herself and her child. Asterisk, what followed in the weeks ahead was a battle Elena never thought she'd have the courage to face. Divorce papers, court, hearings, and endless gossip from the media. But Adrien stood by her side through it all. He revealed his true identity when the time was right, not to embarrass her, but to show the world that she was not a victim anymore. She was the sister of a man who would give everything to protect her, and a mother strong enough to start a new. Daniel's empire crumbled under the weight of his arrogance. Investors pulled out, partnerships dissolved, and the world turned its back on him. But Elena's story became one of resilience, a reminder that strength can come even after betrayal. With Adrien's support, she rebuilt her life, not as someone's wife, but as her own woman, opening a foundation to help other women facing abuse. Determined to be the voice she once wished she had. Asterisk, and when her baby was born, Adrien stood beside her, tears in his eyes, promising his niece a life filled with love, laughter, and protection. Elena knew then that family was not defined by wealth or appearances. It was defined by those who stood by you when the world tried to break you. Asterisk, dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories Collection. These stories are more than words. They are reminders of hope, love, and the strength within us all. Asterisk, and before we end, I have a special request. Please comment below with the words, "Family always protects," to show the world that love and loyalty are stronger than CR asterisk. The sound rang out like a gunshot. Sharp, cruel, and unforgettable. Daniel's hand had connected with Elena's face in the middle of the restaurant, a place where chandeliers sparkled above, violins played softly in the background, and wealthy couples laughed over their fine wine. But in that one moment, laughter died, the music faded, and every eye turned toward the corner table where humiliation had taken place. Elena's cheek burned, her body froze, and her heart shattered into 1,000 unspoken pieces. She was 7 months pregnant, carrying the life they had both once celebrated. And yet here she was reduced to silence under the weight of her husband's rage. Asterisk, Daniel adjusted his cufflinks as if nothing had happened, his face twisted with disdain. He didn't care that people saw. In fact, he relished in the power he had, daring anyone to question him. For years he had built his empire on intimidation, bulldozing rivals, silencing critics, and manipulating those weaker than him. Tonight, that cruelty had spilled over in public, directed not at a competitor, but at his own wife. Asterisk, Elena's eyes stung with tears she refused to let fall. She had promised herself she would be strong, that no matter how cruel Daniel became, behind closed doors she would never let him see her break. But this was different. This was public. The whispers were beginning. The gasps of women at nearby tables, the judgmental frowns, the awkward coughs of men pretending not to notice. Every sound was another knife to her dignity. Asterisk, and yet, in the far corner of the room, one pair of eyes burned with something more than pity. Adrien stood frozen in his waiter's uniform, a tray balanced in his hand, his knuckles turning white. Around its edges, he had seen many ugly things in his life: greed, betrayal, heartbreak, but nothing compared to the sight of his sister, swollen with child, being struck like she was worthless. His sister. The girl he had once carried on his shoulders when their parents were too tired. The girl who had whispered her dreams of a better life, of love that would protect her. And now she sat there, abandoned by the very man who was supposed to keep her safe. Asterisk, few knew Adrien's truth. To the staff of the restaurant, he was just another extra hand for the night, filling in shifts because he needed the money. To the diners, he was invisible, a servant pouring water into their glasses. But beneath the plain black vest and bow tie was a man who owned more than half of the city's hidden businesses, a man who had built an empire in silence, away from the flashy spotlight Daniel adored. Adrien had chosen humility not out of necessity, but out of principle. He believed that wealth meant nothing if you lost the ability to see people, to serve people, to understand their pain. Tonight, that choice of humility had led him here. Watching his sister crumble, asterisk, Elena's hand instinctively moved to her stomach, as if shielding her unborn child from the storm. She tried to steady her breathing to convince herself she could endure it just a little longer. But deep inside, she felt a crushing emptiness. How had she come to this point? She had once believed in Daniel's charm, his promises of safety and luxury. When he swept her into his world, she thought she was escaping the struggles of her humble past. But luxury had come with shackles. The diamond necklace around her neck felt heavier than chains, and the mansion she lived in felt more like a golden prison. Daniel leaned closer to her, his voice low but venomous. "Embarrass me again, Elena, and you'll regret it." His words sliced through her already broken spirit, and that face,